empires rose, armies marched, and superpowers collapsed. Yet Afghanistan remained unconquered. Why does this land break every empire that tries to control it? This question has echoed through the corridors of power for centuries, a haunting riddle for generals and presidents alike. From the legions of Alexander the Great to the mechanized divisions of the Soviet Union and the high-tech drones of the United States, the world's mightiest forces have marched into this rugged, unforgiving territory with dreams of conquest and control. They arrived with superior weapons, vast resources, and unwavering confidence. Yet, time and again, they have been forced to retreat. Their ambitions shattered, their armies humbled, and their empires left to count the cost in blood and treasure. The story of Afghanistan is a story of resistance. It is a chronicle written not in the ink of treaties signed in distant capitals, but in the fierce determination of its people. This land, located at the very crossroads of Central Asia, has been a prize coveted by many but held by none. Invaders see it as a strategic chessboard, a vital piece in their global ambitions. But to the people who call it home, it is a sacred inheritance, a network of valleys, mountains, and ancestral lands defended with a tenacity that has become legendary. The invaders change, their flags and ideologies differ, but the outcome has remained stubbornly, tragically consistent. The Graveyard of Empires is not just a dramatic nickname, it is a historical reality. This pattern of failed conquest is so profound that it begs a deeper understanding. It is not simply a matter of bad luck or poor strategy on the part of the invaders. The reasons for Afghanistan's unconquerable nature are woven into the very fabric of the country itself. They are found in its geography, which presents an almost insurmountable obstacle to conventional armies. They are embedded in its complex social structure, a mosaic of tribes and clans whose loyalties are local and whose distrust of outsiders is absolute. To understand why empires fail in Afghanistan is to understand the soul of the land and its people, a soul forged in centuries of conflict and an unyielding desire for self-determination. The lesson taught by Afghan history is a stark one. Military might does not guarantee control. Victory on the battlefield does not translate to victory in the hearts and minds of the population. An occupying force may win battles, capture cities, and install governments, but it cannot easily command loyalty or impose a foreign will upon a people who have mastered the art of resistance over generations. The story of these failed invasions is not just about Afghanistan. It is a universal lesson about the limits of power and the enduring strength of a people defending their homeland against all odds. It is a drama that has played out on the world stage, leaving behind ghosts and unanswered questions. To understand why Afghanistan is so difficult to conquer, one must first look at a map. The country is not a flat, open plain where armies can easily maneuver. It is a fortress forged by nature itself, a formidable landscape of staggering extremes that has served as its greatest defender. The most dominant feature is the Hindu Kush, a colossal mountain range that slices through the country's heart. These are not gentle, rolling hills. They are jagged, snow-capped peaks that soar to heights of over 7,000 meters. This immense mountain spine acts as a natural barrier, splintering the country into a collection of isolated valleys, deep gorges, and remote plateaus, each a world unto itself. For an invading army, this terrain is a logistical nightmare. Modern tanks and armored vehicles, so effective on the plains of Europe, become liabilities in the narrow, winding passes of the Afghan mountains. Supply lines stretch for hundreds of kilometers through hostile territory, vulnerable to ambush at every turn. Helicopters, while useful, are at the mercy of treacherous weather and can be easily targeted from the high ground. The mountains provide a perfect sanctuary for guerrilla fighters. They can strike quickly and then melt away into a labyrinth of caves and hidden trails. A landscape they know intimately, while the foreign soldier is a disoriented outsider. The mountains are not just a backdrop to the conflict, they are an active participant, a silent ally to the defenders. Beyond the mountains, the rest of the country presents its own set of challenges. To the south and west lie vast, sun-scorched deserts, where temperatures in the summer can soar to unbearable levels. Water is scarce, and the unforgiving environment can break men and machines with equal efficiency. In the winter, the same lands can be swept by freezing winds and bitter cold. This climate of extremes wears down the morale and physical endurance of any occupying force. Soldiers trained in temperate climates find themselves fighting not just the enemy, but the very environment itself, a relentless and exhausting battle that never ends. Every season brings a new form of hardship, testing the limits of even the best-equipped armies. This geography has a profound impact on how people live and fight. It has prevented Afghanistan from ever developing a strong, centralized government that could control the entire territory. Power has always been local, held by leaders in their own valleys and regions. When invaders arrive, they are not fighting a single, unified state. They are fighting countless small, independent groups, each defending its own piece of this immense natural fortress. Conquering one valley does not mean you have conquered the next. The geography ensures that the war is never won in a single, decisive battle. Instead, it becomes a long, grinding struggle of 1,000 small cuts, slowly bleeding the invading empire of its resources, its soldiers, and its will to fight on. To rule Afghanistan, one must first understand its people, and this has proven to be an even greater challenge than its geography. Afghanistan is not a nation in the modern Western sense, with a single unified identity. It is a complex mosaic of different ethnic groups, tribes, and clans, each with its own language, traditions, and deep-seated loyalties. The largest ethnic group is the Pashtuns, but there are also Tajiks, Hazaras, Uzbeks, and many others. Within these groups, society is further divided into tribes and sub-tribes. For many Afghans, loyalty to their family, their clan, and their tribe comes before any loyalty to a national government in Kabul, especially one propped up by foreign powers. This tribal structure is governed by ancient codes of conduct, such as Pashtunwali, the way of the Pashtun. This unwritten law emphasizes principles like hospitality, or melmastia, justice, or badal, which can mean revenge and honor, or nanawatai, which grants asylum. While these codes provide social order, they also make centralized control incredibly difficult. An insult to one member of a tribe is an insult to all, and a feud can last for generations. Foreign forces, ignorant of these complex social rules, constantly make mistakes. They might accidentally offend a tribal elder, disrespect local customs, or align themselves with one tribe against another, inadvertently creating new enemies and fueling endless cycles of conflict. What an outsider sees as a simple administrative decision can be interpreted as a deep and unforgivable betrayal. This decentralized web of loyalties means that there is no single center of power to co-opt or defeat. An empire cannot simply make a deal with one leader and expect the rest of the country to fall in line. In fact, aligning with one faction almost guarantees the hostility of its rivals. Throughout history, invaders have tried to play this game of divide and rule, funding and arming certain tribes to fight against others. But this strategy almost always backfires. The weapons provided to allies today are often used against the provider tomorrow, and the internal conflicts stirred up by outsiders create a state of perpetual chaos that makes stable governance impossible. The very fragmentation that makes Afghanistan seem weak is, in fact, a key source of its resilience against foreign domination. Ultimately, the Afghan people are united by one powerful sentiment, a deep and abiding distrust of outsiders. While tribes may fight amongst themselves, they have historically shown an incredible ability to temporarily put aside their differences to unite against a common foreign enemy. This spirit of resistance is a core part of the national identity, celebrated in poetry, song, and story. A farmer in a remote valley may not care about the politics of Kabul, but he will take up arms to defend his home, his family, and his honor against soldiers from a distant land. This fierce independence, this refusal to be ruled by foreigners, is the human element that, combined with the forbidding geography, makes Afghanistan a place where empires come to die. In the 19th century, at the zenith of its power, the British Empire saw Afghanistan as a crucial buffer state in its great game against the expanding Russian Empire. Fearing Russian influence on their prized possession, British India, London decided that a friendly, compliant ruler must sit on the throne in Kabul. This decision led to the First Anglo-Afghan War in 1839, a conflict that would become a textbook example of imperial arrogance and failure. The British Army, one of the most professional fighting forces in the world, marched into Afghanistan with relative ease, deposed the ruling emir, Dost Muhammad Khan, and installed their own puppet, Shah Shuja Durrani. For a brief moment, it seemed like a swift and decisive victory. The British believed they had secured their strategic objectives. They set up a garrison in Kabul, and their political officers and their families settled in, attempting to recreate a small piece of England in the heart of Central Asia. However, their presence was deeply resented by the Afghan people. Shah Shuja was seen as a traitor, a ruler propped up by foreign bayonets, and the British soldiers were viewed as infidel invaders. The occupiers remained blissfully unaware of the simmering rage beneath the surface. They failed to understand the tribal dynamics, the religious fury their presence provoked, and the deep-seated Afghan code of honor that demanded resistance against a foreign-imposed king. The calm was deceptive. It was the quiet before a devastating storm. The storm broke in the winter of 1841. A popular uprising erupted in Kabul, and the British political agent was killed. The British commander, weak and indecisive, negotiated a disastrous agreement for a safe retreat to Jalalabad, about 90 miles away. In January 1842, a column of around 16,500 people, including 4,500 soldiers, and 12,000 camp followers began their desperate march out of Kabul. They were poorly prepared for the brutal Afghan winter. As they trudged through the narrow, snow-choked mountain passes, they were relentlessly attacked by Afghan tribesmen. The retreat turned into a massacre. Men, women, and children froze to death or were cut down by their pursuers. The result was one of the most catastrophic defeats in the history of the British Empire. Of the 16,500 who left Kabul, only one man, an army surgeon named Dr. William Brydon, was recorded as having reached the safety of the British fort at Jalalabad. The annihilation of an entire army sent shockwaves through the empire and became a cautionary tale for generations to come. The British had grossly underestimated their enemy and overestimated their own ability to impose their will. They learned a brutal lesson. Conquering Afghan cities was one thing, but controlling the Afghan people and their unforgiving land was a completely different and perhaps impossible task. The failure echoed for decades and set a grim precedent for future invaders. More than a century after the British disaster, another superpower sought to tame Afghanistan. In December 1979, the Soviet Union, fearing the collapse of a friendly communist government in Kabul and the rise of Islamist influence on its southern border, sent the 40th Army across the border. Moscow's leaders believed it would be a quick, limited operation to stabilize the regime and crush the growing insurgency. They expected their overwhelming military power, tanks, helicopter gunships, and elite special forces to make short work of the poorly equipped Afghan rebels, known as the Mujahideen. Like the British before them, the Soviets walked into a trap of their own making, a conflict that would last for nearly a decade and earn the name the Bear Trap. The Soviet invasion had the opposite of its intended effect. Instead of crushing the resistance, it galvanized it. The presence of a godless communist foreign army united disparate Afghan factions under the banner of jihad, or holy war. Farmers, students, and tribesmen from across the country flocked to join the Mujahideen. The war transformed from a local civil conflict into a national crusade against a foreign invader. The Mujahideen received crucial support from an unlikely coalition of countries, including the United States, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia. The CIA funneled billions of dollars in weapons and funding to the rebels, most famously providing them with Stinger anti-aircraft missiles, which proved devastatingly effective against Soviet helicopters. The Soviet military found itself mired in a brutal guerrilla war for which it was ill-prepared. Its conventional tactics were ineffective in the rugged terrain. Soviet convoys were constantly ambushed in mountain passes, and their garrisons in the cities were like islands in a hostile sea. The Mujahideen, with their intimate knowledge of the land and support from the local population, controlled the countryside. For Soviet soldiers, the war became a terrifying ordeal of constant fear, fighting an elusive enemy who could be anywhere and everywhere. The psychological toll was immense, leading to widespread demoralization within the ranks of the 40th Army. The conflict dragged on, with no end in sight. By the late 1980s, the war had become a bleeding wound for the Soviet Union. It was draining the country's economy, costing thousands of lives, and fueling dissent back home. The Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, recognized that the war was unwinnable and a major obstacle to his reforms of glasnost and perestroika. In 1989, after nearly 10 years of brutal fighting, the last Soviet soldier crossed the Friendship Bridge back into Uzbekistan. The superpower had been defeated. The bear trap had snapped shut, contributing significantly to the weakening of the Soviet regime and its eventual collapse just a few years later. Once again, Afghanistan had proven that it would not be broken by an outside empire, no matter how powerful. History repeated itself with an eerie familiarity in the 21st century. In the aftermath of the September 11, 2001 attacks, the United States identified Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda, sheltered by the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, as the perpetrator. When the Taliban refused to hand over bin Laden, the United States launched Operation Enduring Freedom. With a combination of overwhelming air power and support for local anti-Taliban militias, the American-led coalition swiftly toppled the Taliban government in a matter of weeks. Kabul fell, and a new government was installed. To many, it appeared to be a stunningly successful and righteous mission, a new model of modern warfare. However, the initial quick victory gave way to a long and frustrating nation-building project. The goal shifted from defeating al-Qaeda to transforming Afghanistan into a stable, modern democracy, a task the United States was profoundly unprepared for. Billions of dollars were poured into building an Afghan army, a police force, schools, and infrastructure. But this effort was plagued by systemic corruption, a poor understanding of Afghan society, and a fundamental disconnect between the foreign-backed government in Kabul and the people in the rural provinces. The Taliban, who had melted away into the mountains and across the border into Pakistan, slowly began to regroup, launching a powerful insurgency. The American-led war became a 2-decade-long stalemate. United States and NATO forces, despite their technological superiority, found themselves fighting the same kind of frustrating guerrilla war that had bedeviled the British and the Soviets. They could win every direct battle but could not secure lasting control over the countryside. The Taliban insurgency grew stronger, fueled by resentment against foreign troops, civilian casualties from airstrikes, and the corruption of the Kabul government. Soldiers on the ground were caught in a complex web of tribal allegiances and local power struggles they could not comprehend. The mission lacked a clear, achievable objective, and public support for the forever war dwindled back home. In 2021, after 20 years, 3 United States presidents, and trillions of dollars spent, the United States withdrew its last troops. The result was a shockingly swift collapse of the Afghan army and government that American forces had spent 2 decades building. The Taliban swept back into power, retaking Kabul with barely a fight. The chaotic scenes of evacuation from the Kabul airport were a painful echo of past imperial retreats. The longest war in American history ended not with victory, but with the very enemy it had set out to defeat back in control. The American experience became the latest and most vivid chapter in the long, tragic history of failed interventions in the unconquerable land of Afghanistan. The stories of the British, the Soviets, and the Americans are not 3 separate tales but a single, recurring narrative written across 3 different centuries. Each empire arrived with its own justifications, its own technologies, and its own belief in its inevitable success. Each was humbled by the same timeless forces, a geography that cripples armies, a tribal society that resists central authority, and a people whose spirit of independence is unbreakable. The lesson is stark and clear. Afghanistan does not yield to foreign flags. It is a land that consumes armies, bankrupts treasuries, and shatters the confidence of superpowers. The graveyard of empires is not a myth. It is a historical pattern, etched in stone and paid for in blood. The failure is not simply military. It is a failure of imagination. Invaders have consistently failed to see Afghanistan on its own terms. They view it as a pawn in their larger geopolitical games, a buffer state, a domino in the Cold War, or a haven for terrorists. They rarely see it as a country of millions of people with their own history, culture, and desires. The governments they install are seen as foreign impositions, and the development projects they fund are often tainted by corruption and cultural insensitivity. This fundamental misunderstanding creates a chasm between the occupier and the occupied, a gap that no amount of military force or financial aid can bridge. The dream of a stable, centralized, pro-Western Afghanistan has proven to be a mirage. As we stand at the end of 2025, the Taliban are once again in control, ruling a country facing immense humanitarian and economic crises. The world watches, uncertain of what comes next. The withdrawal of foreign forces has not brought peace, but rather a new and difficult chapter for the Afghan people, who must now navigate their future under a regime many do not support. The cycle of internal conflict, which has so often been interrupted and exacerbated by foreign invasion, continues. The land remains fractured, and its people face a future of uncertainty. The ghosts of fallen empires linger in the mountain passes, a silent testament to the limits of power. So, we are left with the eternal question, one that has haunted strategists and historians for generations. Can Afghanistan ever be tamed by outsiders? Is it possible for any foreign power, regardless of its might or its intentions, to successfully impose its will on this land and its people? History offers a resounding and unambiguous answer. It tells us that the Afghan spirit, forged in the crucible of its mountains and its long struggle for freedom, is a force that cannot be conquered. The future of Afghanistan will not be decided in Washington, Moscow, or London. It will be decided, as it always has been, by the Afghan people themselves, in their own valleys, on their own terms. Before the video ends, comment your opinion. Can Afghanistan ever be controlled by an outside power?